everybody, welcome back to the channel. As you can see, I have my mandola here with me today because what I wanted to talk about is playing chords on this instrument. Mandolin, octave mandolin, they are tuned one and the same, E, A, D, G, but this is tuned A, D, G, C. So it's a little bit different, and I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into how do you play chords on this instrument so that if I were to play a G chord on this, it's a true G, and it would match with the G chord on the mandolin. It's a little bit tricky because it's going to be a different shape since it's tuned differently. So if you are interested in that, then continue watching, hit the like button down below, and let's get into it. Okay, so real quick, as I mentioned in the intro, we've got C, G, D, A. Those are the strings of the mandola. They are still tuned in fifths. So if you're familiar with stringed instruments, cello, viola, violin, octave mandolin, mandolin, they're all tuned in fifths, which is really, really helpful if you play a stringed instrument. You're gonna be able pretty quickly to pick up another one. I'm going to approach this assuming that the people watching this have played mandolin. That may or may not have been the case, but I'm gonna assume that you guys have played mandolin. Maybe you're familiar with mandolin chords, you know, a G chord, a C chord, a D chord. You've got those down, like the most basic mandolin chords that you could possibly play. And so you have a mandola, you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I make them match? Because if you play a G chord on this, it's not gonna match if you played a G chord on your mandolin. They're not the same chord. They feel the same, but because they're tuned differently, they will not match at all. So I'm gonna be looking at the song Amazing Grace. I have the music available on my website. You can go download that, come back to this video. That way we're looking at the same thing. It's got a G chord, C chord. If you have, there's two different versions of this. There is a simplified version, and then there is a more advanced version. The more advanced version has E minor, A7, D7. So those are all of the chords that we're gonna be covering in today's video. Very common chords, G, C, D, a minor chord in there. So you're gonna get a lot of good chords that are used in a whole bunch of songs. So we're gonna start off with your just standard G chord. So on mandolin, like I said, it would be this. That's not gonna work for this. So what you need to understand is start getting your brain to think about these strings as what they actually are. And to be honest, as someone who has played violin and mandolin for over 10 years, my brain is not quite there thinking that, okay, this is no longer an E string, it's now an A string. It's gonna take some time for my brain to be able to process that quickly. But you wanna be thinking of, this is your A, that's your D, that's your G, that's your C. Don't try to transpose it from mandolin. That's just gonna get you into trouble in the long run. I think it's gonna be much better for you to start training your brain to think of the actual notes on the instrument. So in this case, we're trying to play a G chord. We do have an open G string, right? So we've got G, D. What we're gonna do is we're gonna add our first finger here on our A string, and that's gonna give us a B note. So if we play those top three strings together, that's gonna give us our G chord. And that is probably the G chord that I'm gonna be using the majority of the time. Now, if you added this here, this would also be a G chord. The thing that I don't love about that G chord is that this low note is a D. And I won't go too much into the theory behind that, but if you're playing a G chord, you typically want to have G as your lowest note. So if I play this chord, I have a D as my lowest note, it doesn't sound the best, especially in context with the song. So I'm just going to leave that string out completely and just play the top three strings. And as you can see, this is basically a D shape chord, So if you know your D chord on mandolin, that's what we're doing. It's a D-shaped chord, but we're just not playing the bottom string. So I'm moving my first finger here, and it's gonna sound as G chord. Okay, moving on. So we've got G. The next chord that we have to play is C. So again, we've got a C open string, so that's helpful. C open string, G open string. We're gonna add an E here on our D string, and then we're gonna add a C here on our A string. Okay, so you're probably very familiar with this shape because it is the G shape on mandolin, but on this instrument, if we play that shape, it is now a C chord because our lowest string is a C. So this one's simple enough. This is your C chord. Okay, it goes back to G after that. So we're back to our G chord. Now, if you're looking at the advanced version of the chords, you have an E minor. Now, the way that I like to play minor chords is a bar chord, and this is why it's a little bit more advanced because it is a bar chord. But if you're familiar with bar chords on the mandolin, you're gonna be able to play this just fine. So you're gonna come up C, D, E. So this would be your E note. This is the 4th fret on your lowest string. You're gonna bar that. You're gonna bar it on the lowest 2 strings. Let's not have it buzz. And then you're gonna play the 5th fret on your D string and the 7th fret on your A string. Okay, so that is your E minor bar chord. Now this chord is a lot. And that is one of the things about this instrument. It is a little bit bigger than mandolin, but because it's so similar in size, you can still get away with playing bar chords like this. It's very doable. Sure, maybe it's a little bit big, but especially if you're used to playing that on your standard mandolin, it's not too much harder. So there's your E minor chord. Okay, next chord we have is your A7. So we gotta find an A on our instrument. That's always gonna be the first step. That's gonna be here. The easiest A chord on this instrument, I think, is gonna be this shape, where you could bar that, or you could use 2 fingers like I do. My fingers are small enough for that. If you wanted to add this note here up on top, you could do that as well. Either one is gonna sound just fine. And then we move on to a D chord. So C, D. So this is, again, it's the same shape that we just played for the A. You're just gonna hop your fingers down. And by down, I mean down in pitch. So you're hopping your fingers to the 2 lowest strings, like that. Again, I can cram both of my fingers onto that 2nd fret on both of those strings. You could also just bar it. The other way that you could play a D chord is, you guessed it, another bar chord, which would be like this. Between the 2, really either one is gonna work just fine. I would maybe go with just the open one, honestly, just because it's easier. It still sounds full. You've still got the bass note in the bottom. So that's gonna be your D chord. Now then we have a D7, which you could do the barred version of a D7, or that one's a little difficult. You could do this one, which I really like this chord. This is the one exception. We don't have the bass note in the bass. We don't have a D in the bass on this chord. However, we're moving through it. 7 chords are transition chords, so I wouldn't worry too much about that on this one. And this is kind of where you get into combining octave mandolin chords and mandolin chords, because most of the time on mandolin I wouldn't do this voicing, but because this instrument is a little bit lower, it has a little bit more resonance. I think it sounds better, and it is easier than doing the bar chord. So that is that, and that's all the chords in the song. So you've got all of these different voicings and chords that you can use. So what I want to do is practice actually playing through the song using these chords. That way you can hear them in action, see them in action. So I'm going to have the melody of Amazing Grace playing. I'm going to be playing the chords behind it so that we can hear what all these sound like. So there you go, some of the most basic chords on the mandola, G, C, D, A. Now you can go and play a whole bunch of songs knowing the actual chord shapes on this instrument. So be sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you so much for being here, for watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.